Hemingway once said that all American modern writing comes from one book by Mark Twain, and that book is Huckleberry Finn. That may not be true for all American writing that's taken place since, let's say, Hemingway's death, but it's certainly true for James, which is in some ways a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from Jim's point of view. Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to my review of James by Percival Everett, his latest novel, which is due out today. The nice people at Penguin Random House were kind enough to send me a copy of James so that I could read it and review it, and I'm doing that here today. I've tried to make this video several times, and no time that I've made the video, I think this is the fourth time I've made the video, at no point was I ever comfortable that I captured enough of what the book was about. But I'm going to give it another shot now, and hopefully this will work out. As I said before, this is a retelling of the story of Huckleberry Finn from the point of view of Jim, the enslaved man who travels with Huckleberry Finn down the Mississippi and gets into all kinds of adventures with him. Whereas Huckleberry Finn is a story about Huck Finn and his character arc, his development as a person, and his understanding and realization of Jim's humanity and what Jim actually faces. And he develops compassion for Jim in a way in which almost none of the other white characters in the novel have. This is a story of Jim, and his reaction to those adventures and the adventures he has when he's away from Huck. If you've read Huckleberry Finn, and I reread it as an audiobook just before I started reading James, you know that there are periods of time in Huckleberry Finn in which Jim and Huck are separated, and Everett's going to take advantage of those times to have Jim experience things that Huckleberry doesn't see and that aren't in that original book. So while at times there are plot points that you can follow along from Huckleberry Finn, in James there are also points, significant points, in which the book diverges from that story and adds lots of things. And one of the things it adds is a really searing vision portrait of racism and slavery in the United States during the time period before the Civil War. The violence, the misogyny, the rape, the sexual abuse, the humiliation, the taking away of basic humanity that happened to black enslaved people in the United States and the American South is on full display here. And Percival Everett doesn't blink from showing that, from showing all the aspects of that. At the same time, he shows the various ways in which black people living in the United States at that time period learned to survive, whether by passing or by, becoming co-opted by the system or rebelling or whatever. He kind of shows that as part of the story, and all those things kind of help shape Jim. So we see Jim evolve from an enslaved man who is fearful of being separated from his family and therefore runs, as we see in Huckleberry Finn, to a man whose experiences while he's running create in him a new determination to assert his individuality, to assert his humanity. And that then is really, I think, at the heart of the story. One of the most, I think, impressive, at times funny, poignant, painful things about James is that Everett has the black characters in James speak when they're speaking to white people, or where white people might hear them. He has them speak in the same way in which Twain has Jim speak in Huckleberry Finn, a really heavy dialect. But the truth of the matter is that these characters, these black characters, are as articulate, more articulate than their white southern counterparts. Many of them can read, they can write, and they are far more intelligent acting and far more intelligent and compassionate than their white counterparts are for the most part. So where we have the white characters who are engaged in greed and violence of all kinds and racism and racist violence, we see black characters who are willing to sacrifice, who are brave, who behave nobly in all kinds of ways. And this is, somewhat reflective of how Jim is portrayed in Huckleberry Finn, but in James, we see Jim go from being, from nobly suffering quietly and maintaining his dignity as a human being, which he is aware of and Huck's aware of, to a determination to go beyond that, to not suffer silently, but instead to become a person who takes action. And that is I think, truly remarkable. The writing in James is one of the things which struck me most at first. One of the things I appreciate most about Everett is that his writing almost always seems to fit the story he's telling. So I think I mentioned this before. I don't think Everett has a writing style. I think he adapts his style best to fit what he's writing. And in this case, he is writing his book in a way which doesn't mimic, doesn't copy the way in which Twain wrote Huckleberry Finn, but it gives you that same feeling. And because it's written in a fairly simple, straightforward, direct way, it's easy to not appreciate the beauty of that writing until something vivid, some vivid, searing, powerful scene comes up. But it also, I think, can lull you into a sense that this is just a retelling, and you would miss a lot of the subtlety that exists here in the book. There were all kinds of powerful scenes. I think the one that had the most impact on me is one where Jim gets on a riverboat, a steam-driven riverboat, you know, with a paddle wheel, going up north. He's determined to find and rescue his family from slavery, and he gets on the boat and he finds himself hiding in this below-deck area where there is an enslaved man who, you know, shovels coal into the boiler to keep the steam up and to keep the ship going. And this man lives below deck. He's never allowed up on deck to see the sun. He works in incredibly difficult circumstances. It's hot, there's coal dust, it's smoky. The work is really, really hard, and he's in this kind of cramped environment. He's fed, you know, at minimum, and he doesn't actually have contact with his overseer, with his master. And he becomes kind of habituated to the system, so that he feeds this boiler, he feeds the engine, even when it becomes clear that something is incredibly wrong. And I think that there is a metaphor that Everett is creating there, not just about the way in which slavery perhaps fed the engine of the U.S. economy in a way which led to the disaster of the Civil War, but a way in which resonates for us today. Because when the disaster happens, it's not just the black man who suffers, it's everybody. And I think there might be a point to be made here that continued today abuse of people of color, of people who used to refer to minorities, black Americans, etc., might lead to a similar, and is leading into similar catastrophic areas. You know, that's just me and the metaphor I pulled from there. One of the great things I forgot to mention about the way in which the characters speak is by having Jim and the other black characters be completely articulate as opposed to the white Southern characters they have. Not only do you get laughs out of that, but you also then see the way in which the white gaze is self-deluding and blinds white people to the reality of what the experience of black people is then and now, and it kind of sets this kind of, I think, idea that a lot of white people have about black people and their intelligence and their ability to articulate on its ear. It turns it upside down. So because James depicts the American South and American history in a realistic way, it is bound to run afoul of the forces of censorship in the United States of America today. Those regressive, repressive champions of enforced ignorance who believe that anything which challenges the, great America version of American history is, bad. It's bound to run into those people and at some point be a source of censorship. So for that reason, you should go ahead and read it, because I would say you're reading a book that's bound to be banned at some point. And it does explore a lot of these issues in the United States of America. But beyond that, beyond, I think, its significance as a work of literature, it is also an incredibly well-written, subtle, beautiful, powerful, compelling read, which forces us to reassess not only American classic, but to reassess things about the United States of America in really powerful and important ways. Anyway, there you go. There is my review of James. I hope you'll, go out and get a copy and read it. I do think it's remarkable. I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.